people love racing. Whether it's kids running in the playground, racing bikes, dog sleds, we want to go fast. From horses to chariots, ships, trains, any new form of transportation, we figure out a way to race it. When the car was invented in the late 1800s, the world changed forever. We were obsessed. The first car race happened in England in 1867. The first car-specific race course was Aspendale in Australia. Opened in 1906, and that same year in France, the first Grand Prix took place. Early Grand Prix cars were painted to represent their country of origin. So England used green, France used blue, Italy used red. Over the decades, cars got more powerful, they got more streamlined. Engineers learned more about center of gravity, until the angry man with the funny mustache came along and, well, racing stopped for a while. Yeah! And eventually the angry man was gone and we went back to racing. After the war, the FIA was formed, and in 1950, Formula One was born. Silverstone hosted the first Formula One Grand Prix Championship race in 1950. In the coming decades, names like Fangio, Ascari, Brabham, and Hill topped the headlines for their brilliance behind the wheel. Teams like Alfa Romeo, Mercedes, Lotus, and Ferrari pushed the boundaries of engineering, with streamlined bodies, moving the engines to the back, finally experimenting with wings in every possible shape and size, placed literally anywhere and everywhere you could possibly imagine. Eventually, they became restricted, along with engine size, minimum weight, maximum width and length, and pretty much every other way you can think of. Stewart, Fittipaldi, Lauda, Hunt, Andretti, they were gladiators, battling out on iconic racetracks, strewn across the world. Italy, Belgium, Japan, and Germany, home to the most famous racetrack in the world, the Nürburgring. 1976 was the last time a race was held there, though. The new generation of cars were too fast and the track was too old and too dangerous. More powerful engines, lighter materials, improved construction techniques, and a better understanding of aerodynamics made for cars that were many times faster than the ones that raced just a decade earlier. But in the 80s, they evolved into something way more radical. The turbocharged BMW engines of the time produced 1,400 horsepower. And with more advanced aerodynamics, the cars just kept getting faster and faster. Death was a familiar presence in motorsport in that era. 28 drivers died in a Formula One championship event between 1950 and 1982. The drivers saw it as an acceptable risk. The teams regarded safety improvements as something that would add weight and slow the cars down. Though the FIA did what they could to slow down the cars, with minimum weights raised and limits on aerodynamics, the new age of technology had arrived on F1 shores. With the introduction of computer-aided design and carbon fiber, F1 teams were propelled into the future, integrating technology had never been seen before at that level. Traction control, ABS brakes, four-wheel steering, and active suspension technology, that was the new battleground. Teams like Benetton, Williams, McLaren, and Ferrari dominated the sport, a brutal tech war pushing budgets, engineers, and drivers to the absolute limit. Some of the greatest F1 pilots of all time battle on track at that time. Drivers like Prost, Mansell, and Senna, who many consider to be the greatest driver of all time. Eventually, they made way for new legends in Hakkinen, Villeneuve, and Schumacher, who would go on to shatter virtually every record in the sport on his way to 7 world championships. Once again, however, it was decided the cars had gotten too fast and too complicated. All the new driver aids that were so common were banned. New aerodynamic regulations were brought in. Engines were smaller and less powerful, and they were hybrid. This era saw the rise of new stars, both in terms of drivers and teams. Alongside the surprise Cinderella story of Brawn and the dominance of an energy drink company, we would see some of the best racing the sport has ever seen. In 2012, there were 6 world champions on the grid, with Schumacher, Alonso, Raikkonen, Hamilton, Button, and Vettel. all dueling it out on track. In 2015, Jules Bianchi tragically lost his life at the Japanese Grand Prix. He became the first Formula One driver to die in an F1 event in 21 years, since Ayrton Senna in 1994. As a direct result, the FIA introduced the Halo, providing better protection to the drivers. For 2022, the regulations were changed again, radically changing the aerodynamic concept. Now, ground effects essentially suck the cars to the ground. Teams like Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari still prowl the racetrack, while new names like Aston Martin have come to challenge the establishment. New young drivers are on the scene like Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen. Champions of the past like Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso prove they still have what it takes to run at the front. New tracks have been added: Mexico City, Baku, and Miami, while classics from the 50s persist, with Silverstone, Monza, and Spa still hosting the best drivers in the world. In the years to come, the regulations will change again, drivers will retire, and young talent will take their place. New teams will take the place of older, less successful ones. The cars will become safer, as will the tracks. One thing that won't change is our collective desire to race, and to see the best in the world give everything they have to conquer the track and their rivals. This is Formula One.